Today, we discuss the hire of the Pirates' new hitting coach, Matt Hague, and answer some mailbag questions. You're listening to the Bucco Banter podcast, brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. Cue the music.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates, can they let me run the base? Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates. Order steak by the plate, send in case after case. Run my race at my pace, clear the grass of the snake.
Adam, welcome back. If you had the view that I have of PNC Park, you would see the smoke coming out of the top of it today because we named a new hitting coach.
Exciting day, man. I thought it would never happen.
Me neither. I was honestly like scrolling Instagram. I think it was Pirate Strong who I first saw posted on Instagram. And I texted you. I was like, I thought it was a joke at first because I didn't know Matt Hague was a coach in the league right now. But I remember Matt Hague for sure. And I was like, whoa. So
it's like one of those accounts, like the Adam Schefter accounts where one letter is off and it just fools everybody.
Gets me every time. I don't care.
Except it's
Dunk
Matt
Central
Hague.
Or Central for the NBA. Yeah, exactly.
So funny. But man, we were on the edge of people just losing their mind, right? Because free agency hasn't really gotten going yet. There's been like one signing with Travis Denard, right? And that's about it, other than like some minor league free agents. And we talked about this before. Like, we want a hitting coach before making these hires. Absolutely. Somebody who is young, somebody who understands it, somebody who could have individualized plans. And it's like they were listening to the episode we had with Noah. Because that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, 100%. And I do want to say too, because we've bugged Noah about this, especially last time we had him on. And when there's a new manager search, there's names floated out there. There's rumors. There's who's the team talking to, who they're interviewing. For hitting coaches, you don't get those type of rumors. You don't really know what's going on. You're in the dark as a fan, as a podcaster, as whatever. But I didn't know, and we talked about it a lot. Like you said, we wanted someone young, someone that could communicate to multiple people on the team, a variety of people, and I think they got their guy. I'm going to overreact this episode, so I want everyone to be prepared.
In case you didn't realize, the Pirates hired Matt Hague, former Pirate Matt Hague, as their new hitting coach. Hague was hired by the Blue Jays in 2019 as a fellow during like a fellowship type deal, and then spent 4 years in the minor league system as a hitting coach, and then was with the big league club last year as an assistant hitting coach. I love this the more I read about it, Scott. At first glance, you look at it and you're like, I don't know what to think. Matt Hague, really? The guy who spent 2 years with the Pirates back in 12 and 14, one with the Blue Jays in 15, and then called it a career.
All I remember is paying extra attention to that 2012 spring training for some reason. And like, he went absolutely bonkers and made the team out of camp. And I remember Matt Hague very well. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but you know what? I've read all the articles today. I read Destin's on the Post-Gazette. I've read Stumps on MLB.com. I went back and read his interview this summer with David Larilla from Fangraphs. And I also read this really cool article that I posted on my personal Twitter. I'll retweet it on our Bucco banner page from the New York Times, or it's an Athletic article. And it talks about his coaching style and his philosophy and how he brings a personalized touch to the position. I'm in love. I'm just going to say it.
I love that article that you sent to me earlier today. You shot me a text with it. I clicked on it.
That's the one. Yep.
Amazing article. Rarely do you get an article on an assistant hitting coach going into spring training, right? There has to be something special there in order for there to spark some type of interest in that. Ernie Clement had an awesome quote.
That's
Ernie Clement from the Blue Jays said he's really good at individualizing a plan for each player. That is so key, man. We have talked about it so many times. I know we sound like a broken record, but like, everybody is different. Every swing path is different. Every stance is different. Every approach is different. And being able to create those personal relationships with each individual on the team is a game changer. Not only that, he understands the grind of how hard a major league season is. And he said it himself. And this was another quote, Scott, that you probably have or you saw, but this really stuck out with me in the article. If I was to take one thing away from it, Hague was quoted by saying, baseball, It can beat you up, and just making sure that the player knows that you're there with them. You're there consistently holding them accountable and in a loving way.
Yeah,
Like
that
throughout
was a
the
great
ups
article.
and
That's a great quote.
downs, throughout the ups and downs of a baseball season, through the slumps that are inevitable, you need a guy that's going to be there with you no matter what and have that relationship with you and understand you as a human being. Because without that understanding, without that relationship, you can't connect on a deeper level and then really get down to like the nitty gritty, what you need out of each other in order to succeed. And this is what you want in a coach. And I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of good Ernie Clement quotes in that article. One that stuck to me, and the one that I posted when I posted the article was, um, he said, "Relationship building and discovering what players value and what drives them is at the heart of his coaching philosophy." And I love that. And I've said it, I said it a lot on this episode, and I've said it a lot just in person. That what separates good coaches from bad coaches is are guys that you know get to know everybody on an individual level and get to know and coach everyone differently. The ones that realize that there isn't a cookie cutter way to coaching, to teaching, even like as a school teacher or as a coach, there just isn't one size fits all. We've already seen those approaches with Andy Haynes and Ray Searage, even on the pitching side. He was really big about generating ground balls. Well, guess what? Tyler Glasnow and Garrett Cole, more effective at top of the zone. So I like everything I'm reading. I don't know. Did you get a chance to read the Fangraphs article too? By the way, the interview.
I did.
I want you to read that, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth. But because you're being more of like the hitting guy in this podcast, a lot of stuff that I took away from that is that he obviously has a really good reputation around as one of the better young hitting coaches in the game right now. But he talked he's a big fan of Traject. That's the machine the Pirates have, right? We talked about it with Nick Gonzalez. Big fan of it. He thinks that it helps with gearing swing path for different pitch shapes. He's really big on, he talks a lot about pitchers eliminating parts of the zone. He said pitchers who throw, high vertical fastballs eliminate the bottom part of the zone, the guys that work north-south. And hitters need to stay committed to the zones and eliminating certain areas of the zone, which is a result of, pitchers getting better at pitch shaping and pitch usage. And he talks a lot about gearing swing paths for different pitch shapes. And I don't know, it was a really good article. It goes in depth about his hitting philosophy, and he's big on zones and swing paths and making sure that guys' paths don't work just through one part of the zone. Very informative. I highly recommend everyone go read that.
I love all of that, man. The last thing I'll throw out there is one thing we mentioned with Nick Gonzalez, and one thing that we were trying to make a point with in discussion with Noah is how to handle each individual player in terms of all the analytics and all the data that we have out there nowadays, and what can work for one player and what can't. And in that same article, he mentions like, hey, one guy you might have to throw a ton of data at, right? You might have to throw all these analytics at in order for him to understand and make that adjustment. Or you might recognize another player, none at all, and just like have more of a natural feel for it. So again, just stemming back to those personal relationships and understanding the human being behind all of it goes a long way. I can not be more excited for this, which is, we're saying this on a Pirates podcast. We are ecstatic about a move right now.
Yeah, we are.
We talk about it. And I know this happened earlier today, and we've kind of just been building up throughout the day. We went from like, what the hell, to like, oh my God, this is the greatest hire ever. But this is very good for the Pirates.
Yeah, I think so. And guess what? He's got his work cut out for him. There's a lot of guys that we need to see improvements from, whether it's Brian Hayes, Henry Davis, Brian De La Cruz, or whoever's on this roster next year. I mean, this is it. He's taken over an offense that finished 24th in runs scored, 27th in team OPS, and had the 4th most strikeouts of any club. So the work is definitely there for him to do. We have faith in him, and we know that there's going to be changes with this roster. Just excited that we have that position filled, and now we can really focus on free agency and trade talks.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to talk about like where a guy came up from in like coaching trees, I know that's brought up a lot in like NFL organizations, but like he learned under Don Mattingly for a couple of years. Like that's huge, man. Like understanding how that guy has an approach to hitting, and then using that and then putting your own personal flair on it goes a long way. So, I mean, I understand a lot of people are going to say, like, hey, the Blue Jays didn't have the best year last year, but he was only an assistant hitting coach. Let's remember that. Everybody seemed to love this guy in the clubhouse. And who's to say that he wouldn't have been hired somewhere else if
Yeah.
it wasn't for this? So, really excited about this, Scott. But another exciting thing that's going on is a mailbag episode.
We've
This
got
is
some good
our
questions.
first official mailbag episode. We did one question a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a month ago at this point, but we didn't really kind of just dive really far into these questions. And like you said, we got a lot
Yeah, we
of
did.
questions. We are going to try our best to answer as many as we can in a reasonable amount of time. If we don't get to your question, we'll save on to it and we will answer it in another episode, but we will be doing this more throughout the off season. Scott, I'll get us kicked off here from Mike Nesbitt, Coach Nez on Twitter. How do you see the rotation shaking out next year? That's the question. I'll give you my opening day rotation and then my answer maybe in late May. Skeens, Jones, Keller, Falter, Ortiz. I think that's how it's going to shake out. Just because Oviedo, you mentioned it last week, I think they're going to ease him back into it a little bit more. I don't think he's going to start off with the big league club. Assuming Falter's not moved, assuming Ortiz isn't moved in some type of creative deal, I think those are your pretty obvious arms that are going to be in the rotation. I mentioned it last week how Ortiz deserves that spot. And also, you don't have any other lefties at the moment. So Bailey Falter, you kind of have to put him in there by default if he's able to stay on the same trajectory.
Yeah.
Going into more the midpoint of the season, I would see it something along the lines of Skeens, Jones, Keller, Chandler, and then probably Oviedo at the number 5. And that, I mean, I'm not putting too much value in like the rotation, like where they land, but I don't, I know Thomas Harrington is there. I know Bailey Falter is there. I think Falter can translate better to the bullpen. I think Ortiz obviously has that bullpen experience. I don't feel bad rotating him back there if it calls for it and if he gets pushed out. But the good thing is you have a lot of options here.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, shout out Coach Nez. I think we met him at a game this year.
We did.
Above the bullpen. Yeah, nice guy. But I'm my answer is not going to be too different from yours. I think to start the season, I think the locks are Skeens, Keller, Jones, and then from there, we have Luis Ortiz, Bailey Falter, and Oviedo that make up the other options. I think you have a lot of depth, and I don't see much changes happening to the starting rotation before during the offseason. I think, like you said, Bubba and Harrington are eventually in the mix, but I also believe that one of Falter or Oviedo move to the pen while Falter or Ortiz are traded. So I think there's a lot of things that could potentially happen. I think Falter or Ortiz are traded this offseason. And I think I do see a scenario where Oviedo is eased in and maybe there's a short-term plug before Oviedo is ready to rejoin the rotation. But I've also thrown out the idea that I think Oviedo could be I think his stuff may play up in high leverage in the back of the bullpen.
Like a 7-8-9 guy.
7-8-9 guy, yeah. So I don't rule that out either. But I want to temper everyone's expectations. Bubba and Harrington are not starting in the big leagues to start the season. We will see them next year, barring no injuries, obviously. But I think Skeens, Keller, and Jones are your locks, plus 2 of Ortiz, Falter, or Oviedo to make the other 2 spots to start the season. So
100% agree. Scott, why don't you get us into our next question here?
All righty. So I have, which one would be the bigger blow to the city if they left for free agency, Paul Skeens or Jalapeno Hannah? And that comes from our friend Adam Cinco.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod. He was actually the first guest on Bucco Banner, college hitting coach. Very, very important question, Adam. My answer might be, man, I don't know. It might be a little bit contentious right now, but I will say this. Paul is temporary. Hannah is forever. That's my final answer. Paul has a timeline in Pittsburgh. Hannah will be here forever. And I think that's the one factor that we have to look at when we're deciding between the two of them.
That's the right answer.
Okay,
I've seen many people come through this organization and never come back. I can deal with it. If you're telling me Hannah is never coming back, it will destroy me.
Yeah.
And I think it would destroy the hearts of many in the city of Pittsburgh. Hannah's a beloved pierogi that we have personified into something greater than God at some points. Hannah, she is all. She is everything that can be.
Everything we should strive to be.
Sure. And maybe Paul is too, if we're talking in the same realm of these mythical creatures that take Pittsburgh by storm. Paul is generational. Hannah is immortal. Hannah can never leave Pittsburgh. I will die on this hill. I can deal with Paul leaving eventually. I know Paul is going to leave eventually. Hannah is staying put. That's my answer.
All right. I like it. I like that we're on the same page. I think that's a very easy question for us. And I know
I didn't even think twice about it when I saw it, to be honest with you. It wasn't that hard for me to answer.
He teed us up right there.
Absolutely. Let's go on to more of a baseball related question. Ben Funderburg 127 on Instagram says, I know you guys have touched on it a lot, but what is the likelihood for each free agent to come back next year? Here's the list that I have right now, Scott, and you might have something different. Okay. I have Rowdy, Chapman, Michael A. Taylor, Ryan Barucki, Andrew McCutchen, Yasmani Grandal, Jalen Beeks. I might be missing somebody.
Olivares
Marco is on that list. Marco, we got in a trade, but I guess he opted out, but he is a free agent.
I got 9 guys.
Okay, so I'll start with Rowdy. It should be 0%. It should be 0%. I have it in the likelihood of 10 to 20% that Rowdy is back, just because if the Pirates sit around, they don't get the deal that they want, I think they're going to go back to somebody familiar, and that somebody could be a Rowdy Tellez. I don't want it to be. I don't think it should be. I think he has had his time in Pittsburgh through the ups and downs. I think we need to leave it at that, especially how it ended here. I don't need like hey, we're sorry, here's a makeup tour, here's another $3.5 million. Rowdy Tellez should not be back in Pittsburgh. Michael A. Taylor, I have it 0%. There is absolutely no chance that Michael A. Taylor is in a Pirates uniform next year. And those are, I think, the only 2 that I have at 0%. I have Yasmani Grandal at 0% as well, just because you have Joey Bart coming back. You have Endy Rodriguez. The Pirates have not given up and will not give up yet on Henry Davis. And then you also have options with like Jason DeLay. I think he was really only brought in because of the injury to Endy. The only saving grace is like maybe they want to keep him there for Paul. But if that's the only reason, I think you have bigger problems. So those are the 3 that I have at absolutely 0%.
You are much more generous than I, because I have 6 out of 9 at 0%.
6 out of 9. Okay, I mean, that's
go
ahead. Let's hear it.
No, I really don't think, like, I don't see a scenario where Yasmani Grandal comes back. I don't see a scenario where Jalen Beeks come back. I don't think that relationship was a compatible one. Michael A. Taylor, no shot. O'Neal Cruz to center field. He's not. I think there's a better 4th outfield fit. We even have depth options from AAA with Billy Cook and other guys that potentially could play, and that's outside of any signings that are made. Marco Gonzalez, Don't see that happening in the rotation. So that's 4.
Well, I mean,
And
yeah,
then,
I'd have that at 0 if that was on my list as well.
Edward Olivares is on my list, so I have him at 0. And then I also have Rowdy at 0. I don't see, just with how it ended. I know he said he would come back, but I don't see a scenario where the Pirates go into 2025 with Rowdy Tellez as their first baseman. I think, as much as we don't want to believe that they don't think so, I think there is some maybe regret in the front office that they could have had a better first baseman, or they had a better first baseman the year prior in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. I'll get into my others. Ryan Barucki, I have it 75% just because you do not have lefty arms, and it would be an easy, hey, let's bring him back on a 1-year deal. You could get, I think they paid him 1.6 last year to avoid arbitration. It really depends on what they do in free agency, but they don't have lefty arms in the bullpen. It's something they struggled with. And if he can get back to form, I think that's like an easy, safe option that I would bet on. 75 is, I know, a high number, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I like Ryan Barucki. I don't think this year is a fair assessment of his capabilities. I think you were able to see what he was able to do in 23, 24, obviously had a ton of injuries. I think this is a very cheap option for him. My highest percentage is Andrew McCutchen. I have Andrew McCutchen at like 90 to 95%. And I had it originally at like 85, but I just think like, hey, he was an actual positive this year, barring them actually going out and spending a ton of money in free agency to address specifically the DH question. There's no reason he shouldn't be back. That being said, I don't think I would give him $5 million again. I would try and do it more in the realm of one year, 3.5.
Okay. I didn't put percentages on mine. I am going to say my commentary that I provided on each of those 3 guys. Ryan Barucki, I listed as a fallback option. I do think he is obviously a lot better than what we saw this year. He was not healthy. But I think there are other left-handed options in the market that they might test that are affordable. If those guys sign elsewhere, I think he is a guy that they're going to be able to bring back on a very cheap contract. Chapman, I would love it, but I think it's probably they're probably moving on. I just get the feeling that they are moving on from him. And Kutch, I wrote probably, but open to moving on, because I think that I love Kutch. I've said it before. I don't want to be blocked by him, but I think there are other ways to utilize that roster spot and the money spent. Before we move on to the next question, I just want to break some news on this podcast because something just came across. I keep checking my Twitter. So if everyone's watching on YouTube, that's why I'm looking down on my Twitter. There was a rumor that something was tweeted out, and Noah confirmed it just now. The Pirates have hired Brent Strom as an assistant pitching coach. He will work from the dugout during games. The club will appoint someone else to coach from the bullpen. That move has not yet been made. So an additional hire has been made for the Pirates as a pitching coach, assistant pitching coach. Brent Strom is one of the best pitching coaches in the game. He's older. He adds to a already impressive pitching staff with Oscar Marin as the head guy. This is big news for the Pirates. Big news. Brent Strom brings a lot, and we have not done any research on Brent Strom, so maybe we might need to save this till Sunday, but just wanted to break that.
Well, Noah comes on the pod on Sunday, so how about that for timing?
There we go.
So we'll discuss that with Noah, the man who broke the news himself. I love it, man. I really do. Like, you addressed both needs in one day, and then also I guess there's going to be another move to be coming who's going to coach in the bullpen. That could be an internal move, to be honest. Like they might not go out of their way to get somebody of the notoriety that Strom has, but my quick immediate response to that is great.
Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. That's an awesome hire. He was behind a lot of the Astros pitching staffs through that the early start of that dynasty. So exciting news for the Pirates. We'll definitely do a little bit more research on that and talk more about that on Sunday. But let's move on to the next mailbag question. That comes from Mr. Jack McMullen himself.
Jack McMullen from Just Baseball. Absolutely. Give us your realistic dream free agent and your realistic fallback plan. I'll go first. My dream is Tyler O'Neill. My realistic dream is Tyler O'Neill because I think, as we've mentioned on this pod before, he's not looking for a 10-year deal, right? You're not getting a crazy 10 to 14-year deal, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a 2.5 WAR player, 131 WRC plus. I don't know, anywhere like you probably get him on like a 2 to 3 year deal. You pay him like three years, 42 million. I mean, that's probably make him what the highest AAV.
You said for O'Neill 342.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's the contract, I think that I think they're open to it.
Oh, for sure. What does that put it per year? That's
342. That's like 14 a year.
Yeah. So that puts them right up there with what they're paying. I think they're paying Keller around that as well.
575. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would even go a little bit more than that if it's a 3-year deal. Here's the thing, man. You need power bats. You need a drive in runs. You need a slug. And what better way than inserting a guy that just hit 31 into the seats, right? He walked a ton last year, so he's getting on base a lot. I don't see why they shouldn't throw their hat in the ring and make a very attractive offer to Tyler O'Neill. I know we're not the only ones that think this. I know you've mentioned it. I know Noah is a big fan of it. I think Jack himself on the Just Baseball show picked Tyler O'Neill to go to the Pirates. That being said, it's going to come down to money, right? Yeah. I don't think Tyler O'Neill's coming here because he's always dreamed of being a Pirate. It's going to come down to where's he going to play and how much money is he going to get. And he just came from a big market team. Coming to the Pirates is going to be a massive difference. And I think you need a little bit more compensation. Like, I think we're at that point where you need to start paying people a little bit more to come to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Who's your fallback plan?
I have two, Conforto and Winker. I think they're very, are those yours?
No, one of them is.
Okay. I think they're similar. It's very similar. They're both 31 years old. They're both around, I think they're both actually 1.3 WAR players. Conforto is 112 WRC plus, Winker 118. You're just adding veterans to the squad. You're adding lefty bats, power potential, can play right field, left field. I think Winker specifically, I like a lot just because I think the value and what you're getting in a vet, a guy who played a lot of games last year. I think he played 145 games between
He's fiery too.
Two teams. Yeah, man, you saw him in the playoffs. I think would be very nice to have somebody like that in the clubhouse, assuming he gets along with everybody, because apparently he didn't leave Milwaukee on the best terms.
Oh.
Conforto too. If Conforto can stay healthy, I think these are two guys at 31 years old that are going to give you competitive at bats and would contribute to this team as positive WAR players. But ultimately, I would like to stick with O'Neill as my realistic dream option.
Yeah. So I have the same dream option. I like Tyler O'Neill as my guy because I think he provides the power and defense in an outfield corner that we're looking for. I'm like right now when I'm looking at outfield bats, I'm looking for defense. That's the only reason why Winker's not on my radar. I like the bat, but I think this team defensively needs to massively improve, and we also need to improve slugging. So I think he kills two birds with one stone there. My only concern is the durability. He does spend a lot of time on the injured list, and we've seen this everywhere he's been. But 31, if he's going to put the ball over the fence 31 times in the limited time that he's on the roster, I'm all for it. I think that his contract, I've seen it get projections as high as 360, 20 a year. And I don't think the Pirates are going to go there. And that's where I'm worried that it's not going to happen. And we're going to get outbid. So my fallback plans would be Conforto or Kepler. And I substituted Kepler for Winker because Kepler provides that defensive, value for them that Winker doesn't. And Kepler also, I feel like every year we talk about Kepler as this guy with untapped potential. And is he a guy that could maybe see a change of scenery, who also has a little bit of durability concerns too, but can we get the most out of him that Minnesota wasn't able to? I don't know. So I like Kepler, Conforto, and O'Neill to answer this question. O'Neill would be a dream get, and I think would be a huge offseason if we were able to pull him in here.
I'll change my contract offer for O'Neill a little bit. 3 years, 48. That puts you at 16 a year.
I think that's a competitive offer right now. Yeah.
But I think that's as high as the Pirates are going to go.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised. I hope I am surprised that they go past that, but I think 16 a year is what could potentially bring him to Pittsburgh. Scott, you want to get us off with the next question here?
Yeah, let's do it. I did not write down who wrote these questions, so you might need to help me on that front. But the next question I have listed here is, what is the max annual value you think we would offer to a guy like Alonso or Gleyber? Was that Derek?
It was, yes.
Derek Kleinhans, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let me answer that real quick. The max annual value that we would offer a guy like Pete Alonso or Gleyber Torres. Let me just start by saying I don't think we're signing either of them. But hypothetically, I think for Gleyber, let's start with Gleyber. I think it's a high teens AAV, which is average annual value for anyone who doesn't know what AAV stands for. I think he gets 2 to 3 years. I think you're looking at in the $30 to $45 million range.
Yeah.
So is that out of our affordability? Maybe not necessarily, but it's not also a position of need. Right. Gleyber is a mediocre defender at best. He was one of the worst second basemen this year. And he's limited to second base. That's the problem in the infield. He doesn't have the positional versatility. And we know the Pirates, if they're going to go after an infielder, they're going to go after someone who has a little bit of versatility. But he's also one of the best offensive bats at second base in the league. The benchmark for guys, and I did a little bit of research here, the benchmark for guys that can only play second base going into free agency were 3 names I came up with: Gene Segura, Brandon Drury, and Eddie Escobar. I know Eddie Escobar played a little bit third, wasn't great at it, but those guys got all around, like, I think 13 to 14 million a year. And I think he gets slightly above that. So I see him getting like 217 a year or 218 a year, something like that. And then for Pete Alonso, real quick, I've seen the benchmark as 5,125.
Mm-hmm.
I think he gets below that. I think he's gonna, and here's my theory with Pete Alonso. I think Pete Alonso made a mistake not accepting the offer from the early offer for the Mets, which I think was 7,160 something.
Right.
I think he's going to go out and test the waters and be disappointed as a right first baseman on the wrong side of 30. I think the Mets are going to be like, what do you want? And he's going to tell them, and they're going to give him close to that, if not that. I think he probably does fall in the $20 to $25 million AAV range, but whether that's a 3, 4, 5 year contract, I'm not sure. I don't see 5,125. I see 4,100 seems more likely than 5,125. And I know that's just one less year, but that's just my prediction for Pete Alonso. With that said, I don't see either of them coming to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, the way I looked at this question is, what would the Pirates offer? And
right.
I don't think the Pirates offer anything more than 16 million a year. Like, unfortunately, like, that's just, it's out of the question for guys like this. I also think with the Mets, I think you're right. I think he's going to go out. He's going to test the market. He's going to be disappointed. If the Mets are in on the Soto sweepstakes, he's going to be even more disappointed because they're going to throw all their eggs into one basket. And I think they'd be comfortable moving Vientos over to first base.
I think he eventually goes there anyway.
So I think they've put themselves in a spot where it's like, hey, we can offer you the deal that we want, and we're not going to negotiate. Like, this is what it is, right? So I wish we were in contention still, like, for guys like this or that caliber, but it's just not happening with the Pirates.
If I had to guess, Gleyber to Seattle, and if Pete were to leave the Mets, I like the Nationals, Cubs, or Mariners also as landing spots.
Yeah, those are all good spots. Let's go to Carson Latimus. I believe that is Carson_Latimus on Instagram. Question is, with Gonzalez proving he is the second baseman, is Termarr the shortstop long term? First things first, if you haven't already, Just Baseball's podcast, The Call Up, Jack and Aram did an interview with Termarr yesterday. It is incredible. It's only about 15 minutes long. I highly suggest you go give that a listen. Termarr was excellent. His answers were very well thought out. He talked about his approach, how he looks at hitting from a whole, and who he is as a player. It was very impressive. That being said, Termar doesn't project very well on the left side of the infield. He's 5'7", 175 pounds. He's only 20 years old, but the defense isn't what's going to get him to the major leagues. And to put him at shortstop in the big leagues is a big stretch, in my opinion. I think he's going to play a lot of shortstop in Altoona. I think he'll probably play a lot of shortstop in Indianapolis as well. But once he gets to Indianapolis, we're going to start thinking like, hey, what's going to get him to the big leagues? And it's going to be the bat. It's the same thing why Henry was expedited to the big leagues, because he was hitting. And guess what they did with Henry? They threw him out in right field. And I think this is exactly what's going to happen with Termar. I think Termar, if he's going to convince us that he is ready for the big leagues, either at the end of next year in a late call-up when if they're out of it, or if he's actually just tearing it up, or in 2026 when it's a little bit more realistic of him contributing, unless the defense has a major upgrade, I think they need to get him in the lineup because of the power potential and the bat and the on-base potential. And I could see him getting some reps out in right field, moving along. He does have some outfield experience growing up in the high school circuit, so it's not that far-fetched. I think that's more realistic for me than him being an everyday shortstop at the major league level.
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up perfectly. I think at 5'8", 175, I don't like to put size as a way to profile a guy, but I don't see him as a full-time shortstop. And I like what the Pirates are doing in terms of development. They're playing him. He played 63 games at second base and 36 at shortstop this year. That is to develop his defense. It's like a lot of guys that are destined to be relievers. They start them as long as they possibly can in the minors. I don't see him as a shortstop, or at least a full-time shortstop. I think right now the bat is the biggest concern. Developing that, his range and arm are probably average, I think, at best, and he works with a high center of gravity. So I've seen a lot of reports that his hands have been inconsistent in the minors, and I can't confirm or deny that. I haven't been to a game. I haven't scouted him, but I think it's a bridge. You mentioned right field, but my answer was going to be that's a bridge you cross when you come to it.
Right.
Like, I think right now you continue to develop the bat, and you continue to develop him everywhere you possibly can, and develop the defense. And it's a good problem to have. That's my final answer.
I also think this. I think Gonzalez translates better to third base, or at least the left side of the infield, more than Termar. So if it came down to that, moving Gonzalez and putting Termar at second base, and then having Gonzalez play third, potentially if Key's not there, I think that's also a possibility too. But if Gonzalez sticks on that same path and he continues to produce runs and put the ball in play, it's hard to move him from that spot, right? So if Termar gets there, it's a problem that they deal with at that time. But it's just going to be like, hey, do we need to put this guy in the lineup or not? And then you figure it out, right? And trust me, you'll see that as he makes his way through Altoona and then Indianapolis, he'll start playing other positions. He will. Yeah. So I'm excited to see it, man. He's playing with Team USA right now. So let's see if they can bring back the gold. Scott, why don't you get us into our next question?
Yeah, so we have a question from an anonymous follower on Instagram asking, what do you give up for Alec Bohm, who's reportedly on the trade block for the Phillies? They're looking to shake up the roster after losing in the NLDS to the Mets. That's a good question. I like Alec Bohm as a player. He'd be a little bit of a downgrade from Brian Hayes defensively, but I like the bat a lot more at the current state. I personally, and I could be way off here, but I think a young bat and one of our arms gets the job done, or maybe a big league trade chip, possibly like an IKF. So I threw out like Jack Brannigan and Bucco. I don't know how many years he has left on his contract. That's one thing I didn't look at, but I don't think it's like a massive haul that gets that trade done. But I think you do give up prospects, and I targeted our younger guys or some of the lower level guys when thinking of a trade package here. So I'm going to say Jack Brannigan and Bucco, maybe even like an IKF and a couple younger prospects.
the salary is not much different than what you are paying Key Bryan. Key Bryan's going to make $7 million. Alec is going to make around 8.1. Is it an upgrade? I would think so with the bat. Absolutely. I'm hesitant to believe that Philly would go after a Jack Brannigan or a Hunter Bucco who might need another year to develop. I think Philly needs to win now. And I think
they make that trade because they replenish their system and they sign like a Bregman. That was my thinking behind it. I'm just explaining.
Oh, absolutely. I still think they make those types of moves, but I think they might want, like an option that was floated out there for Alec Bohm was Seattle, where you get a Luis Castillo in return. Here's what Philly needs. Philly needs outfielders.
Yep.
They need pitching depth in the starting rotation, and they need a closer.
Yep.
They need a closer. They didn't have a closer last year. They kind of went by committee. I would be okay with like, I'm probably going to get a lot of pushback for this, and that's okay. If the Pirates were to bring back Aroldis Chapman,
okay,
at 1 year, 8.5, okay, would you be okay? I'm not even going to ask if you're going to be okay with this. Would you be okay with sending them Bednar and one of a pitching prospect or a major league arm for Alec Bohm?
Which major league arm?
Bailey Falter.
Take him back.
Take him back. I know that I don't know. Like, I don't think that's I don't think it's an overpay, because I think there's going to be a lot of teams that throw out a lot of like good starting pitchers to get a guy like Alec Bohm that can provide you with a lot of power. Also, I mean, the issue here is like, hey, do they think they can get Bednar on the right path? There's a lot of good arms out there that they can go out and give good money to fill in that closer role, i.e. Tanner Scott, for instance. Philly's going to spend money, but like if you're trying to move Alec Bohm, like you talk
Phillies
about
are trying to increase payroll, yeah.
Right. You want to get creative. Like, what better way to get creative than give away the hometown hero?
That's interesting. I'm not opposed to moving Bednar. I've been very vocal about that. The only reason I brought up IKF is the big league guy, because I figured maybe he could provide some versatility that Whit Merrifield failed to do for you last year.
Sure.
That was the role that you expected him to play.
I would include IKF in that. I wouldn't do a 3-player, but like I would.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't seen any like the Castillo one intrigues me for Seattle. I think Philly would have to give up more.
I don't know, because I think Castillo's getting older and they're just so young over there where they might just want to move it off the books.
That's an interesting trade. I'm intrigued. I don't know.
I just think there's going to be bigger trades. I think there's going to be bigger trades. And if you're going to make a trade with Philadelphia and they want to address needs now instead of developing guys, maybe that's two guys that they can add to their roster and then go spend the hundreds of millions of dollars that they're already going to do. This is all based on the assumption that Aroldis Chapman stays, or that you can convince Aroldis Chapman to stay with the Pirates, and that you are going to commit to getting a lot more bullpen help.
Yeah, you'd have to make some other signings, but I'm intrigued. I'm listening. So,
all right. Well, you're listening. That's all that matters, right? You're listening.
How about we get to our what's our last one, right?
Yes, our last one. Trying to go through the questions here. I think
it's the trade proposal for Crochet.
Okay, why don't you go?
All right, so I think this is Derek as well. Derek Kleinhans asked, would you trade Falter, Solometo, Davis, York for Garrett Crochet? I said, my response is, if the White Sox would accept that, then absolutely. But a young arm with 2 years control, he's a free agent in 2027. I think the White Sox would demand a little bit of a higher upside piece in this return. I think quantity is not always better than quality. You're giving up 4 players, but Davis has been really bad at the big league level. Solometo has the most upside in this trade. You get a big league arm with Bailey Falter, and you get maybe a big league piece in Nick York. But I feel like this gives me Garrett Cole trade vibes, where we get Michael Feliz. Colin Moran, you know?
Yeah.
Although we didn't really
Except
get
we're
a
on the better receiving end of it.
yeah, but it doesn't like I don't know the White Sox accept this trade, even though I wouldn't call it a horrible proposal. I think you need to give up a like an Ashcraft
Yeah.
um in here. I don't know what the trade value of Salameno right now, given his year, and I think he's got upside and there are a lot of scouts that really like him, but he's still young and he needs to prove him. There's a lot to prove. And I'd definitely be willing to entertain packaging Davis in some type of trade, but I don't think this gets it done for Crochet. What do you think?
I don't. I think the White Sox are going to ask for more in return. I think the White Sox would ask for Termarr Johnson, honestly,
Yeah, I think they
in
would
this
too.
type of trade. You're trading Solometo at his lowest value. You're trading Henry Davis at his lowest value. So who's to say those guys just go over there and make the big league club?
Yeah.
You know, they could just fizzle out. You might as well throw Jack Sawinski in there as well. I mean,
He
if we're
grew up a
just
White
talking
Sox
like,
fan.
right. I mean, I agree. Like the quantity over quality isn't necessarily the best thing. I think they're going to want top prospects for Crochet, especially with the position that they're in. They're
I
gonna
mean,
they need to rebuild. They need guys that one that can either contribute right now, which Solometo cannot do, which Davis cannot do, and honestly, you're not sure if York can do either,
yeah, exactly.
or you need top prospects. And if not, I think they're just going to hold on to him.
I heard, I think it was Talking Baseball today. I was listening to a proposal that John Boy made, or Jake, I can't remember which one. Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones for Crochet. And some of them said they didn't think that got it done, which seems kind of crazy to me. But like my point in saying that is they're going to be looking for very high upside talent. And I just don't think, hey, giving our struggling pieces in quantity for your top arm is going to work. Unfortunately, I wish it would, but
I agree. Well, that's all the questions that we have right now. If we didn't get to your question this episode, we will get to it next episode. We'll do this more often. We appreciate everybody sending in their questions. Today was an awesome day to be a Pirates fan. A lot of moves are happening, and we haven't even signed any players. So maybe the best is yet to come. Maybe this is going to be attractive for free agents seeing these types of moves. Who knows? But we are excited to talk about it on Sunday with Noah, because not only now can we talk about Matt Hague with Noah, we could talk about Strome with Noah, the man who reported it himself. If you don't already, I can't believe you don't follow us on Twitter or X or Instagram. Shame on you. Go hit that follow button right now. Threads. I don't mention Threads enough. Go on Threads. I'll be honest with you. I don't really go on Threads that much, but we post on there every single day. So if you like Threads, go follow us on Threads. Most importantly, go to YouTube, hit subscribe so you're updated when these episodes come out multiple times a week. Like the video, leave a comment. If you're listening, leave a 5-star review, download the episode. If you follow us on X, we are giving away a old Pirates card every single day until the season starts. I have too many of them. I need to get them out of my apartment. Today we gave away a Don Slott card, which I need to announce the winner right after this. Could be yours if you just went and reposted it and followed us. That's all you got to do. The rules will be posted on each post, so hopefully a card ends up in your hands. Go to the Bucco Banter store, get some gear. Black Friday's coming up. Maybe we'll have some good deals where you can get a hoodie, a blanket, an ornament for your tree. I know you like Christmas trees, Scott. You're a big Christmas tree guy. You like decorating the tree. You going to put a Bucco Banter ornament on the tree this year?
It's going to be full of Bucco Banter gear. I mean, just full of it. So absolutely.
Maybe
it's going to be a Bucco
like
Banter tree.
A hoodie over the top of it.
It's going to be my star. Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, we appreciate everybody for listening. And until Sunday, raise it.
Raise it, baby.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates, or the steak by the plates and it